So, all right. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So, many hearts. Do you want to talk about the piece of shit Stephen Miller? Do you want to talk about dictator Trump? I'm officially transitioning to calling him dictator Trump now for uh, his attempt to reverse the pardons. So we can talk about pardons, or we can talk about um, uh, piece of shit Stephen Miller, um, who I think is a huge piece of shit. So it's Trump or Miller. Okay, well, we'll start with um, Paula Thomasina. Um, okay, so then we'll talk about Miller. I mean, he's a really big piece of shit, and there's a whole slew of reasons why. I don't know, Amber. Miller is um, like this piece of shit. um, so here, let me get a little bit better situated here so that we can go over this. Um, so the thing about Stephen Miller that truly boggles the mind is how someone so young can harbor such an intense hatred. Um, uh, while most 30-somethings were figuring out their careers and relationships, Miller was busy drafting policies specifically designed to maximize human suffering. Um, the family separation policy is a policy everybody will remember. Um, Here's the thing about that, Ann. I've asked that question. Is Miller really in the closet? But I think somebody said in a comment in the article that I wrote about him that he's actually married and has 3 kids. That doesn't mean shit necessarily, but um, so what kind of fucked up mind conceives the strategies um, that Miller has strategized over the years? Um, he's been quoted as saying, "We need to traumatize children to send a message." That isn't a policy position. That's fucking abuse. He has been registered as saying, "I would be happy if not a single refugee foot ever touched American soil ever again." He's a piece of shit. Um, so when confronted with images of children in cages, Miller said, "That's where immigrant children belong." The heartless assholery and tit-fuckery wore the suffering of children like a badge of honor, like around his neck, and would tell people he was completely okay with that continuing to happen. Um, so here's the thing. From my perspective, I think Stephen Miller is essentially Richard B. Spencer. And for those that don't know, Richard B. Spencer is the face of white nationalism and white supremacy in the U.S. Um, so let's stop dancing around this issue. The SPLC published his emails to Breitbart. They revealed that what many people had long suspected about him. He wasn't tough on immigration. He's soaked to the bone in white nationalist ideology. His reading list includes The Camp of Saints, a staggeringly racist French novel that depicts the end of Western civilization, which is what he wants. Um, Miller um, didn't stumble into promoting racist policies. He deliberately sought out white nationalist literature and worked to mainstream its most toxic ideas into our society. To his assertion, immigration is supposed to benefit our country. Um, he says that it doesn't, and he has used racial epithet after epithet after epithet iteratively over and over and over again to describe every kind of person that isn't a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. What makes Miller dangerous isn't just his beliefs, it's his effectiveness. He's managed to weaponize bureaucracy itself by working in the government. Um, so we all remember the Muslim ban that happened during the first Trump term. Um, Bigotry by executive order, because Donald Trump basically said, if you're Muslim, don't come in the fucking country. Um, Chaos at the airports. The ban itself was a masterclass in Miller's approach, which started with a nakedly unconstitutional religious test. If you couldn't pass a religious test, you couldn't come into the country. What's more galling about the travel ban saga was watching Miller smugly defend it on Sunday talk shows like it was okay. We're protecting the country from its most evil elements, which at the time, during Trump's first term, was, Muslims, basically. Um, the contempt that Miller shows for the Constitution was matched only by his contempt for the intelligence of the American people, of which he believed the American people had no intelligence, and certainly none above his own. Um, for Miller, DACA recipients. So you remember the Dreamers DACA bullshit that happened? Not that the program itself was bullshit. It wasn't. It was brilliant. But Miller's attacks on DACA, um, you were brought to America as a child, raised as an American, and contributed to the only country that many of them had ever known, were acceptable casualties in his crusade. So he was completely fine with deporting all the DACA recipients who came here with the dream to stay in America. So what kind of twisted logic views those children as a target? What kind of twisted logic views college students, military service members, and young professionals as dangerous um, elements that must be purged? I mean, why would anyone believe that? Famously, he said of the DACA recipients, they have to go back. Um, they have to go back to their country. They don't belong here. Um, so this is nothing short of Miller's constant desire to engage in class warfare. Not content with just targeting immigrants based on religion or origin, Miller has also worked tirelessly to ensure that being poor would be sufficient cause for you to be excluded. If you're poor, then you're not contributing to society, and you need to get kicked the fuck out of the goddamn country. This rule wasn't about protecting American taxpayers. It was ensuring that only the right kind of people came into the country, preferably white, wealthy, and European, who are the people that, in Miller's mind, are the only people that belong in the U.S. The most stomach-churning aspect of the public critical charge rule was its cynical cruelty towards families. Immigrants were forced to choose between accessing health care for their children and preserving their chance at legal status, which in Miller's mind was not worthy, and nor did it need to be worthy. But nothing reveals Miller's more moral bankruptcy more starkly than his systemic dismantling of America's refugee program. So he dismantled all of that in the first term, and he is already back to dismantling it even further still into the second term. That's hypocrisy so thick you could choke on it. Because it's not about national security. It's not about terrorism. It's about cleansing immigrants from the country. Um, in Miller's mind, the only refugees we should accept are Christians facing persecution. Let that sink in for a minute. Let that stew around in your head. Miller literally believes that the only immigrants we should take in are immigrants who are white, Christian, and being persecuted in their own countries. Um, Miller's influence during his time in the first term and then ultimately in the second term, um, the entire concept of immigration enforcement underwent this dark transformation. Um, the system itself needed to become a weapon of psychological warfare. This explains the deliberate overcrowding of detention facilities. So I don't know if everybody read, but one of the American Pie actresses was detained because she crossed the border, and when she crossed back, ICE detained her, and she spent 2 weeks in an ICE detention facility. And basically, her statement about that, which, by the way, the country she had gone to was Canada. And so in the ICE detention facility, and this is like up in, up in the north, we're not even talking near the Mexican border. You were caged, you were thrown on the floor, you were given a mat with a thermal blanket and no pillow, and she was there for 2 weeks. And she said the conditions in the ICE detention facilities were so deplorable that it barely supports human life. And so Miller's assertion to that is that we need to treat them like criminals, ignoring the fundamental legal reality that immigration violations are civil, not a criminal matter. But the most revealing aspect of Miller's detention strategy was how it contradicted all of the available evidence about effective immigration policy. Study after study has countlessly showed that the alternatives to detention, such as case management, community supervision, and regulated immigration policy, were both more humane and more effective at ensuring immigrants appeared for their court dates and that immigrants took to the process of becoming an American citizen. So, but in Miller's mind, throughout his time, Miller wrapped himself in xenophobic, America First like rhetoric, which screamed of connections to 1930s anti-Semitism. That rhetoric, sleight of hand, allowed him to cast policies in the first term and is allowing him to cast policies in the second term that eliminate the very non-white people that he doesn't like. Miller's version of all of this conveniently ignores how many of his policies actively harm American interests. His refugee restrictions damage America's moral standing in the world. His visa chaos hurts American universities and businesses. We've already seen what's happening with Muhammad Al-Had and how they're treating that guy. That's just going to continue to become more and more obvious. So how does he survive in a government while others, will ultimately get fired and disgraced? So Miller's genius lay in his media manipulation and bureaucratic infighting skills. However the fuck he developed those, I have no idea. But literally, he's a piece of shit because he can manipulate the media in such a way as to draw attention away from himself. His rare media appearance revealed his true character: combative, condescending, utterly convinced of his own righteousness. But that's the thing. He almost never does interviews. He's almost never seen publicly. And he's almost always talked about from a piece of paper and not directly. Behind the scenes, however, Miller is even more exacting and more disgusting. He's a bureaucratic knife fighter who has made a habit of purging those who resisted his agenda and resist his agenda currently. Um, so what the fuck do we do? Um, he represents the very darkest of possibilities in American politics. What happens when ancient hatreds get modern makeovers, when xenophobia gets dressed up in policy papers, um, and when machinery of government gets hijacked by those fundamentally who are going to fundamentally reject America's most essential promises. The United States has been defined not by blood or soil, um, but by the commitment to the idea of freedom, opportunity, and the proposition that we're all created equal. In Miller's mind, that's all bullshit. That's all a lie. America is blood and soil, and that's the blood and soil of white people, not anybody else, which is why he's a racist piece of shit. Uh, he is famously known for saying, America is for Americans, white Americans. Um, Stephen Miller continues to fail America by trying to make it smaller in comparison to what it is. And the ultimate judgment on Miller will not come from political commentators or even historians. It will come from America in a way that holds him accountable. And after his second term with Trump, I imagine he's not going to survive it, just like I don't think Trump is going to survive it, um, and so forth. Um, so give me just a second because I just had um, a really bad pop up, and you guys are going to want to talk about this. So give me just a second here. I got to cordon this off so we can talk about it. Apparently, um, the political temperature over Trump's administration, toe-to-toe with the judiciary, um, is getting unprecedentedly large in the power struggle. And there's been a new update. So let me get a thing going here. Okay. Sorry, my partner gives me this stuff, and then I just sort of ride with it as it happens. So Trump is trying to bring the American experiment to its knees and burn it up. Donald Trump's administration isn't just pushing the boundaries of executive power. Um, they're actually trying to change executive powers. I don't know if everybody knows. Earlier today, Trump announced that he is going to reverse um, the pardons for the January 6th committee people that Biden gave. So Biden gave the January 6th committee people all pardons, blanket pardons. Trump now says he can reverse those and convict and jail those individuals. So that includes Cheney and Kinzinger and all of the other individuals who were on the January 6th panel that prosecuted them. I mean, this goes back to the whole Trump wanting to make CNN and MSNBC illegal because they say bad things about him that are not true. And if you missed that, I actually wrote an article about it. And yeah, Amber, I completely agree. By the way, Paula, if you find this interesting, or you have questions, please ask. If you're not a free subscriber, consider becoming a free subscriber. If you are a free subscriber, consider becoming a paid subscriber. Blah, 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 spiel, whatever. But back to the discussion. So we're on the deportation showdown. So basically, that setup was that Trump tried to use the Alien Enemies Act of 1789 to basically expel certain individuals and deport them. A federal judge swung back up almost literally the same day that Trump announced he was going to do it, and told him, I'm blocking you, you can't do it. And overnight, Trump did it anyway, and then this morning told the judiciary, oops, too late, you can't block me, I can do whatever the fuck I want. So when Boasberg had the audacity and gall to issue an order halting the deportations, the administration's response wasn't just defiant. They just said, fuck you, we'll do whatever we want. That isn't governance, by the way. Um, you know, um, yeah, Wilkerson, I mean, we're really to the point where we are ready to impeach and remove. The most chilling aspect of that clusterfuck isn't even in the actions themselves, but the brazen rhetoric surrounding them. Um, Tom Homan's declaration, which should be carved into the tombstone of American democracy, should we ever actually have a tombstone to American democracy, where literally Tom Homan said, we're not stopping. I don't care what judges think. I'm going to do what the fuck I want. Fucking bullshit. Let that sink in. A high-ranking administration official publicly declaring that court orders are irrelevant, he won't follow them, and fuck you, judiciary. Here we go. We're in a Lockhorn fight with the judiciary and the executive branch of the government. So while Trump leads this judicial witch hunt, by the way, all Musk does on Twitter, since nobody in their right mind is on Twitter, especially in this live. I hope not. If you are, get the fuck off. Go the fuck away. Don't log into Twitter. It's a cesspool. But Musk, daily on Twitter, is saying we need to impeach, arrest, and remove partisan judges. It's time to fire partisan judges, and it's bullshit. So first, there's J.D. Vance's spectacular transformation from Trump critic to sycophant. So J.D. Vance is sucking Trump's cock and doing all of Trump's bidding over all this bullshit. What we're witnessing is the normalization of judicial contempt. And what that says is the judiciary says, you can't do this, fuck off. I'm going to do it anyway. So the message from Trump and his lackeys is crystal clear. Courts exist to rubber stamp executive action, not check it or deny it, and they don't have that permission. Musk believes that, Homan believes it, Trump believes it, every member of the cabinet believes it, and every member of the cabinet believes that whatever Trump says is what happens. Fuck every other branch of the government. It's all useless, and it's a waste of time and space. So at the heart of the show is the administration's resurrection of the Alien Enemies Act. And I wrote an article about this. If Craig Nixon were in here, I'd ask him to find it and post it. If somebody is actually looking at the publication, somebody go find it and post it in the chat for everybody else that hasn't read it. I published it 3 days ago. It's a very good article specifically about the Alien Enemies Act and what it entails. So it's a legal relic from an era when the ink on the Constitution was barely dry. And I want to say barely dry. Passed during the quasi-war with France and signed by John Adams, the law was designated for a specific purpose, dealing with citizens of hostile nations during wartime. And it's been used 3 times. During World War I, World War II, which, by the way, in World War II, it was the reason that Americans set up concentration camps during World War II in the U.S. for Japanese citizens. I don't think a lot of people were particularly well educated about that. And if you weren't, I'm sorry. But yes, literally, during World War II, there were concentration camps in the U.S. that housed Japanese citizens because at that time, everybody was afraid that Japanese citizens were all spies and shit. Which, by the way, I'm just going to tell you, that probably fed into McCarthy's bullshit going into the Korean War and his desire to fucking, fine, internment camps. In my mind, they're still just concentration camps. But I understand, Amber, your distinction. So Trump's interpretation says he can use the Alien Enemies Act to expel whoever he wants from the country, as long as he can frame those individuals as people that are attacking the country. Well, so let that sink in for a minute. Um, because I, as a trans woman, am fraudulently lying about my gender, I am an enemy combatant of the country. He literally could say that and try to eject me from the country and deport me because I'm an enemy combatant, because I engage in criminal activity. If Trump criminalizes trans persons being trans persons, then in theory, he could use the Alien Enemies Act to deport me and make me go away. Although I will tell you from my perspective, I think Trump is much more interested in killing me and erasing me utterly off the face of the earth than ever he is interested in deporting me to some random fucked up country. So Trump's interpretation of the Alien Enemies Act um, isn't a legal interpretation. It's a legal fucking hallucination. The White House remains deliberately vague about details, which should have set off alarm bells like on a 5-alarm fucking fire. Um, the lack of transparency isn't accidental, it's strategic. Vagueness causes wiggle room. Wiggle room causes and allows for abuse. Today it's Venezuelan gang members. Tomorrow it could be all trans people like me. Um, so where does this leave us? Um, we're basically on the precipice, and we've been on the precipice, and we keep getting closer and closer. It's like the doomsday clock. Only not the doomsday clock. We're getting tick, 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 tick until we hit the constitutional crisis clock, and that goes off. Then it's going to turn into a piece of shit. Um, Full-blown constitutional crisis. So, prominent attorney Mark Zaid, who's argued before SCOTUS and represented whistleblowers from across the political spectrum, isn't mincing words when he says we're careening towards a scenario where the executive branch refuses to abide by judicial order. The minute that happens, or the minute that happens repeatedly enough, we're going to go into an absolute constitutional crisis, and we will have a state convention, and they will take him off. Now, um, history lesson here, I want everybody to be aware of this. If the 25th gets invoked, they don't cut the head off, they cut the shoulders off. So if the 25th gets invoked, the VP and the POTUS and the VPOTUS get removed. And whoever is the Speaker of the House is who becomes President of the United States until a new election can be triggered and a new president can be elected in the democratic manner for which it has been done. Those implications are completely staggering. Um, if an executive can just simply ignore court orders it finds inconvenient, then judicial review, a cornerstone of the Constitution, becomes nothing more than a theoretical exercise. And now we're actively defying the Constitution. Courts without enforcement power are just debate societies in robes, and they mean nothing at all. They literally mean nothing at all. This is precisely the scenario that the founders feared when they designed the government of separated powers. This is why I'm convinced, just as was the case with Warren G. Harding, who before Trump was the worst president we've ever had, in my opinion, because he took bribes from people for oil and took money. Trump is the constitutional test. Trump is the method for which we use to test the Constitution and whether or not it needs to be amended or not. And I'm telling you, if like 5 amendments don't come out of this bullshit, I'm going to be shocked. The genius of the American system has always been its built-in tension, where ambition counteracts ambition, and not a single branch can dominate the other. And if a single branch does dominate the other, we have a real fucking problem. So, global perspective. The judicial showdown doesn't exist in just solely a vacuum. It's playing out against the backdrop of democratic backsliding worldwide, where populist leaders from Hungary and Brazil have used similar tactics to consolidate power. Um, that's all Trump's doing. He's doing the exact same thing. The difference is that it's not happening in a fledgling democracy with weak institutions. It's happening in the U.S. and it's happening right now. Um, the United States has been the lodestone for constitutional systems worldwide. Yale law professor. If we abandon our commitment to separated powers and judicial review, we're not only changing our system, we're giving license to authoritarian tendencies globally against everyone else, which is bullshit. Um, how do we deal with this? Um, the stakes couldn't really be higher at this point. If the pattern for judicial defiance continues and escalates, we're facing nothing less than the transformation of American governance. We'll actually end up with a fucking king. Congress, despite its polarization, has a bipartisan interest in maintaining its own institutional power relative to an overreaching executive. Um, but Paul Cason, I don't know. I want to say yes, and I would say in my family, I am the cautious optimist versus the pessimists that I all live with, despite the fact I love them to death. Um, but even my optimism has been tested in this scenario. Um, we're really just standing at a crossroads. Um, here's the thing about that, Amber, and I've said this before. Um, yeah, I don't listen to Miranda. She's a pessimist. She doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. Miranda, if you're going to talk like that in the live, I'm going to drag you into the live session so um, you can defend yourself and then I can beat you up. Want to fight about it? Let's fight about it. Really, Miranda keeps me out of trouble. Um, Miranda keeps me desperately out of trouble. The choice should be obvious. Many Democratic backslides have occurred with tacit consent of a public that did not recognize the gravity of the situation until it was too late. We need to recognize it. Warning lights aren't just flashing, they're blinding. The sirens aren't wailing, they're deafening. And the time for complacency, for our complacency, is over. We need to have a voice. We need to be heard. We need to be shared. We need to get together. And we need to do all of this shit so that, you know, how we respond will determine not just our political future, but our identity as a nation, which is governed by laws. Camhurst Rick. You know what? Here we go. Are you kidding me?
Hi, Wendy.
Can't pick a fight like that and expect me not to react to it.
I I am a pessimist though. I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets any better.
I, I'm, I mean, I think you're probably right. Um, did you hear about the MEP from France?
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah, give
everybody
us
else.
back the statue.
Yeah. So the MEP of France, everybody will find this funny. The MEP has requested that the U.S. return the Statue of Liberty because France now views America as a dictatorship. Which makes it better. Oh, hey, Camhurst Rick, are you gonna guess my college car? Because you're like the one person who's made the most number of guesses. And by the way, Miranda can't guess because she knows already. I mean, at this point, I'm really just going to tell the story of the car, even if nobody guesses the car, because the story is fucking hysterical.
You really want to tell the story. That's the thing here.
I mean, it's a good story. Um, it's a really good story. I wish. See, okay, so we have Miranda on the line now. I wish that we could invite Elaine, the angry, mean feminist. I wish. I want to message her and see if she'll come on. But anyway, so I would like for you, Miranda, to tell everybody about the thing that's coming starting tomorrow and going well into um, probably next week. The multi-part that I dropped in our discussion channel,
Okay.
because I feel too dirty talking about it.
Yeah. So Wendy has read all 925 pages of Project 2025. Um, Lord have mercy. And so she's prepared. Is it an 8-part series, Wendy?
Yeah, it's 8 parts, so about 79,000 words.
Yeah. So she breaks it down, talks about what's in Project 2025, what they're already doing, what they plan to do. Um, and yeah, it's scary stuff, but we need to be informed so we know how to fight back.
Astrid, you speak for Elaine, the mean, angry feminist? You know what? You know what, Miranda? Here we go. Here we go. If this works, I'm gonna laugh. If this works, I'm gonna find it funny. Anyway, so yeah.
You love that invite button, don't you?
Oh, I love the invite button. I love the invite button. Hey, Astrid, you should have a notification pop up. Yeah. So, um, and then yeah. So there's 7 parts of the publication run, are my pick apart of Project 2025, and then I wrote a conclusion. Now I will tell everybody you can like burn your one free paid view, because my opinionated conclusion I did as a paid subscriber bend, um, but I have my own reasons for that. Um, but yeah, reading the Project 2025 manual um, was decidedly dirtying. I tried to take a shower and it didn't. It did not. Um,
I mean, these are
here,
truly evil people with evil ideas they want to push on us.
yeah, completely. So Astrid, you'll sort of see it pop up or whatever, because I'm gonna keep like inviting you like until you get it. If you're new to Substack, it's completely okay, but um, uh, you should see a little pop up on your device. You couldn't get past number 3. um, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong about that, Shenley. You're really not. Um, oh, great! This is the first. Okay, this is great.
Hey.
Okay, so now we have Astrid. So this
I
is
had
the
to get
first
on
time.
my phone.
No, this is the first time we've ever had 3 people on the line.
Oh, Astrid brought snacks. Yay.
My
Are you
son made
sharing?
it. It's like tofu jerky. Oh, it's good.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
you're like, oh, that sounds awesome. I know. It's good.
Tofu jerky.
We're gonna have tofu tacos tomorrow for Taco Tuesday.
I see. Okay, like I'm a druid, and so as a druid, like the whole tofu thing, it makes sense. It's the most tasteless shit
This
ever.
is really good. He's
So
done a good job.
is it like dry? Like so it's like freeze dried or something?
No, he sliced it really thin and then baked it in the oven at a low temperature for probably a few hours, and it's super spiced and like coated. I don't know. It's good.
What's the
How?
texture like?
Yeah. So what's that's my question. What's the texture like?
Dry tofu.
uh, hey
Chicken?
Amber.
Chicken?
Oh, it's chicken consistency. Hey
Yeah,
Amber.
dry.
I know you're accusing me of Irish. Don't do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, never accuse me of being an Irish woman. That's a bad choice. Um, so how old is your kid? Can I ask? I can ask that.
This one is 20.
Okay, so we have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 16-year-old.
They're younger than mine. My youngest is the 20-year-old, so that's
Well,
a handful.
well, you're
Teenagers.
already you're already half out of that. You're already almost all the way out of that game. I'm still trying to get mine to the finish. Finish.
He's the only one at home still, so I've got it pretty good.
Oh gosh, I could only imagine. I could only imagine. Seems like I remember when my child was 5, and then I blinked twice, and it turned into a mouthy fucking teenager.
Right? So, and yeah, I definitely don't speak for Elaine. I actually had just messaged her and I'm like, hey, you got me hooked on Substack now, and I caught Wendy the Druid doing a live. And Elaine was like, told me where she was. I'm like, well, okay. So, kind of accused her of being a bad influence. I'm supposed to be grading midterms. So,
Oh, you're a teacher?
well, part time faculty. I have
Part
another
time.
day job, but yeah.
Oh. What do you part time
What?
faculty for? Yeah, now I have to know.
I teach a biotech regulatory and quality class. I'm building a master's program with some colleagues at our local university in clinical trial management, and
Oh,
research is what I do for a living. And I joke that I am raising a lesbian and trans army of scientists. It's amazing.
oh, I think
Not
it's amazing.
intentionally, they're just the smartest people. So,
I'm, as a 52-year-old info security trans woman, I readily agree.
yeah.
I readily agree with that opinion. There are people that would argue with me. Hey, you need to knock it off. Quit being a shithead. My cat is a little bitch. Um, my cat is a little bitch. Okay, well, so you're on the live now. Miranda has already
Yeah.
done this a whole bunch of times. So you can literally ask any question, and I will answer that question. No matter, like, no holds barred. You can literally ask me any question, and I will answer it.
About what?
Anything.
Uh,
Anything, and or can you guess my college car?
college car.
Yes. So I went to college. I started university in '91. So the car was made before '91, and millions. If Camhurst Rick is still on the live, he will tell you he's guessed like 90 fucking times or whatever, and he still hasn't hit it.
Yeah,
The
because
year.
Wendy's been asking people to guess for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like
Yeah.
that.
Nobody. Yeah.
Yeah.
People have gotten
Is it
the
a
year.
domestic?
Yeah, it's a U.S. domestic car.
It wasn't a Pinto, was it?
No, and the article that I posted a picture of the Pinto and then tried to tell everybody this is what the Pinto looks
Uh,
like, but
I need
that's
to
not
go.
it.
Okay, I need to go read apparently.
But that's not it. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go out and tell the story, but I won't tell the car. So when I was in college um, at Georgia Tech, I had a roommate named Remy and another roommate named Bubba. Who Bubba was this much larger, much heavier version of me and a person of color. And so one year we drove out to um, California in my car. Now, okay, Paul Kaysen, 63 Dodge Dart. No, but that's close. And Amber Wolf, it wasn't. It was. I would never have driven an AMC. So here's the story about the car. So the car would only drive 200 miles, and then you had to stop the car, wait half an hour for the engine to cool down, and then go into my trunk, get a quart of oil out, pour a quart of oil into it, wait another half hour, start the car up, and you could go another 200 miles.
That sounds like a Chevy.
So we did that all the way across the USA, and the car had black leather interior, and this was in the middle of the fucking summer. So the black leather interior meant that it would get hot enough that you'd have to get out of the car at random times. Oh, and that was the other thing. The air conditioner didn't work. And then the shifter box would stick. So you had to like muscle it. And so the story about the car is that we drove all the way across the USA in that car. And then like in California, I sold the car and I actually made a profit on it. Because I only spent like $800 to buy the car, and then I spent like, you know, $1,200 or $1,300 to put an engine in it. And so I sold the car for like $5,000.
New Yorker.
Oh, that's a good guess, but no.
Lisade.
Oh my God. Okay, Amber Wolf, you are literally the first person to get as close to it as anyone else has. So here's the deal. If you guess the car, the make, model, year, and color, I will comp you a 90-day subscription to the publication. Which, by the way, I will tell you that the color of the car was the stock color of that car. Like if you bought that car in the year that it was made, it came in that color.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, you're thinking about it though.
I don't know anything about cars, so.
I know, like Amber. You must know a lot about cars, so. It's my belief that if Amber doesn't get it, Rick is going to be Camhurst Rick, who's in Columbia, by the way. He's going to be the one to get it. Amber Wolf, no. I'm not going to say anything else than no for the last one.
So how much do we love the freezing on NIH funding for anyone that's mentioning anything that isn't white and straight in research?
Wait, so NIH funding? You have to quantify
NIH.
that. So National Institute of Health.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. In my line of work, it's a hot topic. And I had...
Yeah, I bet it is.
Yeah.
Like how hot a topic, though?
It's pretty well, depending on the area of research that you're in. I work with a lot of different investigators, but I had one that I spoke with that I had a meeting with on Friday, very tearful. Had just returned from a conference and, with all of her colleagues that are studying the same sort of thing, and specifically working with, I don't want to give away too much on it, but in non-white adolescents in a rural part of the state. Really, people that aren't white are the people that live in this part of the state. There aren't a lot of white folks, and this is a population that really needs the reproductive health intervention that she's created and that we're offering to the kiddos down there. And we're just waiting for her to get the letter. So we're trying really quick to wrap up that research so that we can hopefully find a publisher for it. But so there's that, and just, I don't know.
So you actually raised a very interesting point about that. So when the NIH freeze initially happened, I was on YouTube one night, and Dexter Holland, do you know who that is? Dexter Holland is the lead singer of the band The Offspring.
Oh, okay.
And here's why it's kind of cool with him. You'll find this interesting. He's actually a doctorate of microbiology. And so, like, after he got his doctorate or whatever, he just went back to being a band lead singer. But he is now, or the way I understand it, he's an adjunct professor when he's not touring. And
That's so cool.
he published NIH specific PubMed research about the HIV vaccination effort. And literally in this live, Dexter Holland, who I've seen play on stage countless times because I was a huge concert hound when I would go to concerts and shit, is saying, if the Trump administration fucks around with the National Institute of Health, I'm going to get pissed off. And I'm going to go on stage and tell everybody to vote him out of office. Well, hell, I'm going to do that anyway. And so, from an academic perspective, yeah, the academic outrage at things has to be, I can only imagine.
It's terrible. And then even just within clinical research itself, over the last several years, there's been an awakening and I guess willingness to acknowledge the really essentially biased research that we've been doing, how, most research participants are not representative of the populations that we're really wanting to ultimately serve with the innovations in medicine, and working towards that. So a lot of the research a lot of research utilizes DEI concepts just in our methodology and how we're going about research in order to address that major gap in information. It's terrible. And then, in the same time, I'm reading. I get KFF, morning news briefings for health news every morning, and I can't remember who he's the chief of and what his name was, but someone high up that doesn't know anything that's recently been put in place is trying to correlate the use of poppers with AIDS. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, someone needs to go back and take some introductory statistics classes and introductory human biology and research methodology. Yeah, and so this is what we're dealing with.
I have an easy
Weaponized ignorance.
I have an
Right?
easy solution to this problem. I have this 495-year-old sword. I mean, if I could just get close enough, I mean, we could take care of the problem right now.
Well, I think we just need to, go the French route and bring back the guillotines.
I mean, I do love the Wendy going all Kill Bill Volume 1.
Well, yeah, that would be a show. I think.
Okay, I have to say this. I'm very much a Voltairian. I'm a humanist. I'll be a humanist until I'm dead. And I'm a druid, which means I'm even more humanist than a humanist. And so, for Voltaire to coin the ever popular "all good democracies are ones tempered with a fair amount of assassination," there's truth to the statement. Of course, I think in Voltaire's case, he's saying character assassination, but if you read the article that I wrote yesterday about Trump wanting to make CNN and MSNBC illegal, right? If you read that, I threw in some old history there, and so in the early days of quite literally within the year that the First Amendment was tagged into the Constitution, Jefferson and Washington and Adams, the news media, there was news media back then, was even more partisan then than it is now. And so there was pro-federalist and then pro-republican, and one was fighting the other. And Jefferson actually was the founder of the National Gazette, and the whole purpose that he founded that publication was to fight the other side. And back then, like, Washington's about to go out of being president, and people are literally saying, we need to stop this shit, and we just need to make George Washington our king. So this whole, like, Trump, I want to be a king bullshit, that's happened before. That happened 270 years ago. As Washington was going out of his presidential term, there were people that were like writing in the newspaper, we just need to make His Excellency the king of the country. And so for Trump to brazenly claim that he's the first person to want to become the king of America, or whatever, like, no, that's been done before. And then too, there were people that brought cases into SCOTUS well into the beginning of the 1800s to combat that bullshit, and those SCOTUS panels were even more conservative than they are now, and even they said, no, this fucks with the Constitution, we don't want to do it. So it is my belief that as cases go all the way up to the top, if any of those cases fuck around with the Constitution, I literally believe, with the exception of Alito and Thomas, who I think both need to retire and go the fuck away, that the rest of that court body will not vote in a way that fucks around with the Constitution. I really don't think that'll happen. What is more likely to happen is Trump tries to suspend the Constitution. And I would tell you that my political belief about that is that the day that happens, somebody's going to vote themselves from atop of a roof and using a single gas-powered ballistic projectile to course correct the country. That's probably what is more likely going to happen. I hate to say it, but the A24 movie, Civil War, that movie is really hard to watch, but the end of that movie is exactly what I think will happen if it gets bad enough for Trump to suspend the Constitution. I literally think he will not live through it.
You've just created like the ultimate dystopian nightmare in my mind. Thank you.
It's a gift. It's a gift. It comes from being a polyglot, and I have an eidetic memory. And I'm a very complicated individual. But I hate it because I've actually been in Denver with Miranda, and Miranda's wife is more polyglotty than I am, and that offends me.
We're
Yeah, so my wife knows 10 languages. I know one. It's like,
yeah, I've only got 8.
and it's not through lack of effort. I've tried, but I don't have that particular gift.
But I know a language that she doesn't. That if Caro tried to learn it, she would never be as good at it as I am, which is Gaelic.
Oh.
So if you read the publication, I publish a meditation every morning. I do a third of those entirely in Gaelic. So
I spent the first 38 years of my life in Canada immersed in French and still cannot speak it. I can read it quite well, though, from reading the boxes.
French was too... I'll make a joke. French was too confusing for me. I know high school French. Je suis tu a, il a, l a, l a, l a, l a, l a. I would walk up to somebody in Ottawa or whatever and say that, excusez-moi, monsieur, je suis tu LA? I am, you are, put a sentence together.
Yeah.
Uh, I
I also
actually,
lived in Venezuela for a year and managed to not pick up any Spanish. Well, just a little bit, enough to mess up the little bit of French that I can speak.
so Venezuela, how did you survive that?
Well, this was just before Chavez was voted into power.
Right,
Voted.
voted
Yeah.
into power. Um, you know, my dad has a habit of traveling to countries during the time in which political situations are not
Oh.
always stable. So one year he wanted to go to Galapagos, and if you go to Galapagos, you have to go to Ecuador.
Hmm.
That was a year that Ecuador's political situation was a little unstable. And when asked if I wanted to go, I said, no, 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 no. I sort of value my life a little. I'm a queer person. I value my life or whatever, and they don't like queer people in those situations typically. So, um,
Speaking of queer people and other people and people from, say, alternate religions, there's a local group hosting a black mass at the state capitol. When are they doing that? The weekend after next, the Friday after this weekend?
a black mass, really?
Or I think they were going to do a black mass and they wanted to do it inside because they've got a big compass point in there, so with the directions, but the governor banned them. So
Can I ask what state you're in?
Kansas.
So you're in. So that's how you know Elaine. You know
Yeah.
Elaine.
Oh no, we're friends. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay, cool.
I'm the one that was down at Planned Parenthood with her on Saturday, chanting at the Catholics and freaking them out.
Oh, you went with her for that?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I totally want to
I'm
hear
down
your
there
take on that.
often.
Because I have to tell you, I posted on TikTok because she came into the live and told her story, and it was fucking
Okay.
hysterical. It was
Yeah.
awesome. And so, what was your take on that shit?
I mean, it's the same old shit every time we go down there. They're increasing in numbers. I'll tell you, I think that with this administration coming in, they're really feeling emboldened and empowered. And so they're showing up in greater numbers than I've seen them show up in. I mean, Elaine's been at this way longer than I have, so I don't know what she would say about that. But in terms of what I've seen, they're all out there. And the Catholics, they're not too bad. They just stand across the street and rattle their rosaries at everyone. It's the evangelical types that get right onto the, right in front of where the patients are going in that are the problem. And, I go every other Saturday and yell at them to try and drown them out from saying hateful things to patients walking in the building. And I kind of gave up on that because it hurts my throat to be yelling for hours. And so I was like, I used to be, I was raised a Pentecostal. I know how they think, and I know what really creeps them out, and I know what freaks out with these men that are so deep into that religion and so infused with like masculine toxicity, male masculine.
Male,
We know.
masculine,
Toxic
fragile,
masculinity?
toxic
Thank you.
masculinity. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
my brain is melting. I'm telling you, I literally work 80-hour weeks, and I'm. Bleh. But anyway, um, and so I was like, cool. And being who I am, I mean, I'm a Luciferian and a demonologist, so Lilith is a very big part of just my existence. So I just decided I was going to go there and just chant Lilith's N at them.
You know,
It
that's
really
very
freaked them
funny
out.
because I'm going to tell you, I've only been to two abortion protests in my time, and one during college. And during college, if you get this reference, I will. I already respect you. I'll just respect you a little bit more. So, um, I had my brown Druid's cloak, which looks, by the way, very deceptively like a Jedi brown Jedi robe. And people would always ask me, "Is that a brown Jedi robe?" Or no, it's a Druid's cloak or whatever. Oh, okay, great. Um, so we went to this protest, this abortion protest at an abortion clinic up in Sandy Springs. I live in Atlanta, and so there were like six of us. And we were all in brown cloaks, and we all had a board, and we got out of the car and we kind of walked up to where the crowd was, and then walking up in front of the crowd with the board, we're literally chanting "Jise etsu domine wonk." over and over again. They didn't get it. And I was like,
They wouldn't. My one of my daughters said that if I was just, went there and chanted Lorem Ipsum at them, that they would still be freaked out.
Oh yeah.
So,
you're a Satanist.
Oh
Oh,
my gosh, that
please.
Latin sounds so scary.
I mean, with the demonic and chants, we don't really know. They have their, I think, ideas about the origins of them, but there's no actual language associated with them. So for all I know, I'm babbling off a string of nonsense, but it's powerful for me and it really scares them. And that was the whole point of it. It was amazing. And then just making eye contact with every single one of them, I just sit there, stare at them, chant until they broke eye contact and then never looked at me
Yeah.
again.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're not very brave. They really aren't.
I
No,
have
no.
countlessly, as a druid, identifying druid woman, by the way, been accused of being a devil worshiper. There was a time ago, I was in a gas station, and I don't go into gas stations anymore because I drive an EV, but I was still in a gas station, and there was a girl behind me, and I just sort of brazenly kind of turned around because I was looking or whatever, and she was wearing a very classically Church of Christ symbolized shirt, and I talk to people. I don't hold back or anything. I looked at her. I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, you're a Church of Christ member, aren't you?" And she said, "Well, yes, yes, I am." And she said, "You go to church around here?" And I went, I thought for a minute, like, am I going to risk this? Have I run into a tolerant Christian, or am I? I don't know. But I did it anyway. And so I was like, "Oh, no, I mean, you want to find my church? Go out to an open field of grass and stand in the middle of it." And she's like, "Oh, is that like a church camp thing or whatever?" And I'm like, no, no, I'm a druid." And she's like, "Oh, is that like paganism?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "So you're a devil worshiper?" And I went, "Oh, okay,
Oh, wow.
great."
This is the thing, right? Like even with the group that's going out to Topeka, the Friday after this Friday, I know them well. We've had some philosophical differences. I don't associate with them, as a group member anymore. But they're all atheists. They're all atheists. Like, and a lot of Satanists are. Is they don't even believe in Satan. So,
Yes,
but
yes,
it's
yes.
gotten a lot of media attention. To the point where there are people in the left hand path community, they're like, maybe you just shouldn't go. They're worried about bad actors showing up. And of course, the proximity to like Westboro Baptist is problematic. Um, you know they're going to be there. And there's already Catholic organizations that are going. So we're going to go counter protest and hope no one gets shot, I guess. But
You know, Westboro's website goes down like every 45 days at 2:30 in the morning.
hmm,
I'm not going to let you know why I know that it happens exactly at that time.
I think I will allow my mind to go where it wants with that.
But I've actually been out to Gates Park.
Oh,
So I've seen the queer house that's
yeah.
right across
There's a couple of them, yeah.
right across the street from that place. That place is a fucking fortress.
Yeah.
Like they're that afraid of the gay getting over the wall and infecting all of them.
I mean,
But
speaking of
Didn't one
fortresses,
of the
try going into
founders' kids come out as
I
gay?
don't know. But here's the thing. I have a theory about that. So I'm going to feed into some conspiracy theory by saying this. So I believe one of two things about the church. Um, and both of them are likely, but only one of them is true. And so the first thing is this: um, it is highly likely to me that it's possible that the Westboro Baptist Church is literally a false flag. That's literally it's all just one big POE.
Hmm.
If you understand what a POE is.
No.
So something so absurd that by fact of nature, it must not be true. But you emulate the thing that everyone hates. And the purpose is to make everybody hate the thing that they portray even more. And so there are people that are like, oh, it's a false flag. They do that literally just to cause everybody to hate the church and the church representation. Because every member of that church is basically a lawyer. They're all lawyers, all of them. But here's the thing that's more likely. Gage Park is right next to where the church is. And way back in the 70s, or late 60s, early 70s, Gage Park
Sorry to
really.
interrupt. I gotta go.
Oh,
So see y'all later.
Miranda, yep. Um, Gage Park was a gay hangout. And what I think happened is I think the elder Phelps got accosted by somebody. And that caused him to go off the deep end. Because before that, he was a segregation lawyer. He actually desegregated most of Kansas as an attorney.
What?
Yeah, he was a registered Democrat. He was pro-minority, like all of the. And then something happened, and he went off the deep end and turned into a fierce anti-queer, anti-gay person.
Huh.
And so, yeah, what I think happened was he went into Gage Park one day, and somebody touched something inappropriately, and that's how that ended up happening. Which is funny because if you read about his like last year of life, he started to sort of back off on the whole God hates F's bullshit. And the church actually excommunicated him. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, 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 he got Mr. No No touched, and that's what. So
Yeah,
I
you
don't know.
probably liked it too, so.
Yeah, right. I mean, because repressed Christians love that kind
Right.
of thing. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, so we'll stop there, because my partner is playing Overwatch, and if I don't play Overwatch with her, she's going to get mad at me. So
Okay.
so Astrid, thank you for coming on.
Yes,
I
thank
now
you.
know. Just be aware, I am now going to bother you. I'll give you a break, like 2 or 3, 4 lives ahead or whatever, but don't be afraid to speak your mind or whatever. So,
Awesome. All right.
thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Hmm. Okay. Well, Amber, I'm going to watch the live session, read through the chat, and if you guessed it, I'll let you know. So I will leave everybody with thank you all. I love you all. Please be safe. If you're not safe, get to a safe space. Thank you for supporting the publication. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. If you're a free subscriber, consider being a paid subscriber. Yada yada, whatever. Um, it really helps me. And I'm very thankful for those of you that can afford to be a paid subscriber. I very much appreciate it. You're making my life much easier. Um, and then stay strong, everybody, please. And everything's going to be okay. And we're going to get through all this together. I love you all, and good night.